Hello, my name is Benjamin Dobbs and I am the Head of Global Standards and Legislation for LEEA. I represent our members on various standards committees throughout the world, and one of those committees is BSI's MHE 311. This is the UK Mirror Committee responsible for all use and inspection standards, and for the UK most notable being the BS 7121 series. This presentation is an update to a presentation I did on the series a few years ago, and will give an overview of the current standards, their importance, current work and future projects. Safe Use Standard was first introduced in 1989, and later in 1991 we introduced the inspection, maintenance and examination part of the series. Both were subsequently revised in 2006 and 2003 respectively. In 2010, a business case was approved to revise and modernise these standards, with a new General Part 1 being published in 2016 and the inspection, maintenance and thorough examination a little earlier in 2012. Other parts of these are still a work in progress, but we are nearing completion. The BS 7121 series is split into sections. Part 1 is a general section of the series that applies to all crane types. Subparts contain specific information that is applicable to specific crane types. They are Part 3, which is covering mobile cranes, Part 4, which covers lorry loader cranes, Part 5 covers tower cranes, and Part 7 is for bridge and gantry cranes, including light crane systems and hoists. Part 11 is offshore cranes, but mostly covers the pedestal type crane, and Part 12 is for recovery vehicles and equipment. Part 13 for hydraulic gantry lifting systems, and finally Part 14 covers side boom pipe layers. In the UK, the BS 7121 series have a special status in standards known as quasi-legal, but elsewhere they provide a recommended minimum benchmark for safety. This is because they give practical advice on how to comply with the law, and if you follow the advice, you will be doing enough to comply with the law in respect of those specific matters on which the code gives advice. However, you may use alternative methods to those set out in the code in order to comply with the law. Although it is important to note that if you are prosecuted for a breach of health and safety law in the UK, and it is proved that you did not follow the relevant provisions of the code, you will need to demonstrate that you have complied with the law in some other way, or a court will find you at fault. So what are the significant changes to the codes of practice? Well, there are many, so for the next part of this presentation I will highlight the key areas for both use and inspection maintenance parts, starting with the user codes. In general terms, much of the content of the codes of practice for the safe use of lifting equipment have been updated and improved, but significantly changes have been made to provide clarity to three lift categories: basic, intermediate, which was formerly the standard lift, and complex lifts. The complexity of a lifting operation depends on the hazards associated with the load path, the load itself and the equipment lifting it, and the environment in which the lifting operation is being carried out. The standard now provides examples for environmental hazards and the relationships between the different lift categories. The standard now includes a new section on contract lifts. It also includes more detailed guidance on the general selection of and siting criteria for cranes. It introduces the principle of combined roles for the selection of personnel, and we have made improvements to the general safety section and improvements to the lifting of personnel. Additionally, there is now a new annex for the training requirements of appointed persons and crane supervisors. We have guidance to the effect of wind and down rating, and also guidance to the use of cranes adjacent to sites of exceptional hazards, and finally, guidance for radio communication for lifting operations. All subsequent parts to the general section are or have been updated to align them with the changes made, with specific requirements for each crane type. To date, we have published BS 71213, Code of Practice for the Safe Use of Cranes, Mobile Cranes. This was first published on the 30th of June 2017, but following a fatal accident in Scotland and a request from the Sheriff conducting the fatal accident inquiry, we made an amendment to include requirements for fly jibs. We also took this opportunity to make some amendments to road rail cranes in the annex. The next subpart to be published was Part 5 to the series, and that covers tower cranes. Finally, we published a brand new section to the series, Part 7, covering bridge and gantry cranes, including light crane systems. This is a very important standard, as previously much of the BS 7121 series of standards were heavily biased towards practices for mobile and tower cranes on construction sites. This was problematic for this crane type, as most of the applications involve basic and repetitive lifts. It is for this reason that we added clarity to the category of lifts and the combined roles of personnel. This particular part of the code was based on the LEEA Code of Practice for the Safe Use of Lifting Equipment, and the new and improved 9th edition cop shield has now been published and is available to download for free from our website. The next part of the series is that covering inspection, maintenance and thorough examination. And it is within these parts of the series that we have made some significant changes. Previously, Part 2 of the BS 7121 series covered inspection, maintenance and thorough examination and was applicable to all crane types. However, its requirements, as stated earlier, were heavily biased towards the requirements for mobile and tower cranes, which caused confusion with the other types of cranes within the scope. So we've decided to split the standard into subparts with specific sections for each crane type as follows. Many of the subparts have now been written, and they are as follows. BS 7121 Part 2 Part 1 is a general section, and that was published on the 30th of November 2012. At roughly the same time, we were working on the mobile cranes part of the standard, Part 2.3, and that again was published on the 30th of November 2012. Following on from this, we worked on the lorry loader crane series, part of the series, and that's Part 2.4 and was published on the 31st of July 2013. BS 7121 Part 2.7, covering bridge and gantry cranes, was published on the 30th of November 2012, but it had to be amended in 2015. This was amended due to the conflicts with the Limit State Design series of standards, and notably the testing requirements of EN 15011. An amendment was published to resolve the conflicts in 2015, but with a new version of EN 15011 on the verge of publication, the amended 2015 version will require or may require further changes. Finally, we published BS 7121 Part 2.9, and this covers cargo handling and container cranes, and it was published on the 30th of September 2013. As with the safe use parts of the series, we now have a general section specific to all crane types. And we also have specific sections for each crane type. The standard now includes a detailed section covering maintenance, including access and egress. We have added detailed guidance on the attributes, skills, training, assessment, competence and continued development of those doing inspection, maintenance or thorough examinations. Introduce and include the principle of defined scopes of examination. And we have now modernised the testing requirements, whilst maintaining requirements for in-service legacy cranes. With respect to the maintenance aspects of the series, the standard now covers 3 management types. The first is a condition monitoring approach. It's a predictive approach as it estimates the remaining life of a crane based on classification compared with the actual utilisation. Second, we have a planned preventative maintenance. This is comparative, as maintenance is done following a number of cycles or a specific date based on similar historical data or experience. Finally, we have breakdown maintenance, which is reactive, as the name suggests, but if it isn't broken, then don't fix it. These approaches are not recommended for all crane types, and the specific parts clarify which are for each crane. Standard provides a general best practice approach to the application of these and also includes information on record keeping. People carrying out various roles associated with inspection, maintenance and thorough examination. The standards specify the required attributes, i.e. they must be comfortable working at height, adequate eyesight and so on. Competence is specified, i.e. they must be fully conversant with the crane, procedures for work at height and so on. Competency assessment and training is covered in respect of the skills, training plans, training records. And finally, the standard covers in-depth detail on continued professional development, or CPD. The series specifies the principles for defined scopes of examination. The defined scopes of examination have to be drawn up in advance of the examination. They have to be specific for each crane type. However, generic scopes are allowed for certain crane types and applications. They must reflect the service history and future use of the crane. This is where predictive assessment of DWP, or design working period, is important. They must specify the nature and extent of the examination, supplementary testing, supplementary reports required, for example, previous reports of examination, maintenance history reports. They have to take account of manufacturer's instructions, maintenance history, examination history, and the actual conditions of use, for example, number of lift cycles and environmental conditions that can cause deterioration. And to help the standard provides examples in each specific crane part to the items that need to be checked in the defined scope. Note that the lists given in the standard are not exhaustive lists and not to be taken as comprehensive checklists. Periodic overload testing within the series is now aligned with SEN requirements and is no longer recommended. This is particularly important for cranes designed to the new limit state design method. Testing is recommended following exceptional circumstances, and the requirements for 4 years, 8 years and 12 years remains the same for loader cranes. This will be discussed when work starts on the revision process of this standard. The reason why we do not recommend overload tests, as there are few benefits and a number of disadvantages. For example, some manufacturers do not recommend overload tests in their instructions for use. Repeated overloads can cause deterioration over time, and most structural failures are the result of fatigue cracking. Defects such as fatigue cracking can be made worse by overload testing, and if equipment fails during a test, it can be expensive and dangerous. Additionally, there is no defined structural or mechanical benefit from overload testing, and some insurance policies will not cover cranes that have been overloaded, even as a test. As mentioned earlier, the BS 7121 Part 27 part of the series had problems with the testing requirements as they conflicted with the EN 15011 standard. The BS 7121 Part 27 standard applies to new and old cranes, but the limit state design has changed the requirements for testing and verification. Deflection limits are a variable now, and the static load can't be applied with any motion. Traditional testing can also damage low-duty EN 15011 cranes. New standard has been published, and the testing has now to be done in accordance with the manufacturing standard for which the crane was made. Deflection limits are now specified by the manufacturer or by the original manufacturing standard. So that covers the background to the series and the changes that we have made today. Next, I'll briefly go through current works in progress and our plans for the future. The next in line for revision is BS 7121 Part 4 and the inspection maintenance part of the standard Part 24, which together cover all aspects specific to lorry loader cranes. The Construction Plant Hire Association and the Association of Lorry Loaders are updating their guidance that will form the basis of this standard. A business case has been approved and a panel has been formed to begin the drafting process. LEEA experts are on the drafting panel of this standard, and we are working with the other stakeholders to improve these parts of the code. So if any LEEA members have issues they would like to seek clarity on with respect to the current content of these standards, then get in touch with us and we will ensure that they are addressed and hopefully included. Currently, LEEA has also been taking the lead on the development of a preliminary work item for an inspection, maintenance and thorough examination section applicable to offshore cranes. Currently, the series does not have a section for offshore cranes covering inspection, maintenance and thorough examination. Therefore, given that in our experience there is much need for one, such a standard will be an excellent addition for operators using such cranes. This is because it will set a common minimum approach to inspecting and maintaining such equipment, and having a consistent approach will be beneficial in reducing the presence of defects in these cranes. It will also help improve the manner in which the defects are reported and processed. The preliminary draft is being written within a LEEA working group comprising of industry experts, leading industry stakeholders, and representatives of the regulator. The draft is nearing completion as a LEEA guidance document and will soon be further developed as a British standard. Once the aforementioned subparts have been completed, then we are proposing to begin work on a revision of BS 7121 Part 11, which is Code of Practice for the Safe Use of Offshore Cranes. There is a lot of interest in a revision of this part of the series, and the committee is currently investigating whether there is a case for separating offshore cranes on fixed installations from those on floating installations. They are both classed as offshore cranes, but they have some differences in their respective operations that we feel needs to be separated out. Work will begin on this part of the series as soon as Part 211 is completed. So any LEEA members wanting to contribute to the development of this standard should get in touch with us as soon as possible by writing to technical advice at leeaint.com. A revision of BS 7121 Part 12, Code of Practice for the Safe Use of Cranes, and Part 12 covering recovery vehicles and equipment has also been considered. However, many of the bodies who had been involved in drafting this part of the code no longer exist. There may also be some overlap with other guidance documents, and as such, a proposal to withdraw this part is being considered. So if any LEEA members have any interest in this standard and would like to retain it, then they need to inform us as soon as possible by writing to technical advice at leeaint.com. Finally, we have BS 7121 Part 13, hydraulic cranes, and BS 7121 Part 14, which is side boom pipe layers, and they have been discussed and there seems to be little interest in revising these sections. The reason being that the crane types are not very common in the industry anymore and are little used, so the proposal would be to declare them obsolescent. So although the current standards could be used, they are in effect withdrawn. Therefore, again, if any LEEA members do have a vested interest in these standards and would like to make changes to the current versions, then please let LEEA know in writing to technical advice at leeaint.com. So hopefully I've explained that the BS 71 series is clearly a good standard for the safe use of cranes. But what about other forms of lifting equipment? Well, for other forms of lifting equipment, LEEA has published the new Code of Practice for the Safe Use of Lifting Equipment, 9th edition, which is available to download for free from our website. And it has 27 sections covering the safe use, maintenance and inspection of cranes, hoists, manual and powered, winches, slings, jacks, structures, non-fixed load lifting attachments. It is now a globally harmonised code of practice that sticks to LEEA recommended industrial best practice without referring to UK legislation and standards. It is also referenced as a source of further information in the BS 7121 series and is complementary to its philosophy. LEEA Cop Shield is also free to download from the LEEA website. Finally, LEEA also has the Lifting Equipment Examiner's Handbook. This has 27 sections covering the thorough examination of cranes, hoists, again manual and powered, winches, slings, jacks, structures and non-fixed load lifting attachments. It is also accompanied by a quick reference guide that has examples of defined scopes for each type of equipment listed within it. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions on this presentation or require further information on the BS 7121 series of standards, then please let us know in writing to technicaladvice@leeaint.com. Thank you.